itching on the tips of my fingers. I've got a boiling in the back of my brain. I've got a hunger burning inside me, cannot be denied. I've got a feeling that the Father who made us, when he was kindling the pulse in my veins, he left a tiny spark of that fire smoldering inside. The spark of creation is flickering within me. The spark of creation is blazing in my blood. A bit of the fire that lit up the stars and breathed life into the mud. My first inspiration, the spark of creation. I see a mountain and I want to climb it. I see a river and I want to leave shore. Where there is nothing, let there be something, something made by me. There's things waiting for me to invent them. There's worlds waiting for me to explore. I am an echo of the eternal cry of let there be. The spark of creation burning bright within me. The spark of creation won't let me rest at all until I discover or build or uncover a thing that I can call my celebration of the spark of creation. The spark of creation, may it burn forever. The spark of creation, I am a keeper of the flame. We think all we want is a lifetime of leisure, each perfect day the same, endless vacation. Well, that's alright if you're a kind of crustacean, but when you're born with an imagination, sooner or later you're feeling the fire get hotter and higher. The spark of
Theatre, an entire industry shut down by a global pandemic. In the Wings is a collection of interviews with writers, composers, and creatives whose work was affected by COVID-19. In this series, we will shine a spotlight on those productions, featuring live performances by West End stars and emerging artists. These are the stories of those shows, waiting in the wings. Episode 1, The Wicker Husband.
Rhys Jennings, tell us a little bit about yourself and about the show that you're here to talk about today.
So I'm Rhys Jennings, as you've just said, and I'm the book writer of a show called The Wicker Husband, which sadly opened and closed on the same night back in March. I come from an acting background, so this was my first show, which took a long time to get to that point.
So what would you consider to be the impetus, the inspiration for your story?
So the original short story, which I discovered, just wouldn't go away, basically. I read this story and it stuck in my head, and I kept coming back to it and thinking this would be a good thing to adapt, but I was an actor, not a writer in any way, shape or form. So to begin with, I was just sort of looking around and thinking, who of my friends could write this? And I asked for lots of advice, and if you go back in the annals of time and you'll meet people who went, oh yeah, Rhys asked me to have a look at this. But eventually I just couldn't find the right person who had the right vision. I went, do you know what? I'm going to write it myself.
You know, I think that's what happens is you know, you become, that's why you become a writer, that's why you become a set designer or a producer, is you say, you know, I have a vision, and you become passionate.
I have to do this. I have to do this.
I used to watch you fishing beneath my canopy. I used to love the way you cast your line. I used to watch you hoping you'd look up and notice me. I am the willow tree. I heard the sound of wishing beneath my willow shade. I heard you singing and it broke my heart. I heard the hope in every word that one wish you made beneath my willow shade. So when the old man called the trees together and told us he was making you a man, he said, who will give me the witty, my friends? Who'll give me all that they can? I said, I'll supply the witty. Strip the wig of fiber from me. Take my willow and weave it true. Weave me under and round and through. The pain of the weaving I'll enjoy for you. And I know I am but a willow yet. Even so, I'll supply the withy. I long to hold you, lover, down by the riverside. I long to hold you as the years went by. I came to love you well before the day you were my bride, down by the riverside. And as you shared each secret with the willow, as I saw your tears stain the ground, my own heart grew from a part of you. I supplied the witty. He stripped the wig of fiber from me, took my body and wove it new, wove me under and round and through. I'll enjoy for you, and yes I know I am but a willow yet. Even so, I supplied the witty. I supplied the witty. Supply the witty, I supply the witty, I supply the witty,
And what was it about this story that was so compelling?
I think it's got a real heart, and I know that's a really vague thing to say about any story, but it's the classic story of the outsider. So it's the girl who's ostracized by a community and is led to believe that she's branded as the ugly girl, and that becomes how she sees herself. And through the story, especially in our adaptation of it, it's about breaking that down for her and her realization by the end that there is no such thing as ugly. It's a community that has chosen what is beautiful and what is ugly. It's their problem. It's not hers. And that's what I mean. It's
very powerful.
It's really powerful, and especially, we've had all these workshops over the 9 years, and it's been great to see it evolve. But to finally see it in its full, in its fully realised form. Bear in mind, there's puppet. One of the main characters, the Wicker Husband, is a puppet. So it's the first time we saw that. But to finally get that resolution where you see it on stage and you see her overcome that massive obstacle, it was really, really powerful to have lived with it that long and to finally see it. Behind the scenes, there's lots of negotiation. I mean, if you think about it, this was a massive, big risk for the Watermill to take. It's a new show, which they don't do a lot of, as in new writing, new British show at that. A massive cast for the Watermill. If you know the space, it's a small, intimate space. The main character is a 3-person operated puppet, so that adds 2 in itself. Okay. And then, obviously, the band is from the cast. So, it was for Watermill standards. That's a big show.
So you literally had this show opening night, and no more after that.
No.
And
I mean, we managed to get a handful of previews in, all our photos done, which is quite beautiful to look.
And a beautiful program.
A beautiful program.
Yeah.
Plug it.
Absolutely. Since you've got 3 boxes of them at home.
Exactly. Yeah. I was saying to the theatre, what are we going to do with all those programs?
Yeah, bonfire. Yeah.
In fact, there's a beautiful program note that we spent a long time, discussions about the puppetry and the whole process. And, that in itself is a thing that took a lot of emails back and forth, redrafts, and then we'll never see the light of day for now.
I would sing to you of the silver birch when spring is in the meadow. I'd sing to you of old man elm when the autumn colours glow. I would sing to you of oak when the summer days are long, but when the storm begins to blow through the chill of winter snow, I will sing to you the song of the willow. He sings of pain, but beyond the willow's sorrow, he survives to sing again. For the wind will blow, and the canopy will shake, though the boughs may bend, the willow will not break, for deep inside the willow's heart is strong, and that is why I sing to you my weeping willow song. I will sing to you of the silver birch when spring is in the meadow. I'll sing to you of old man
For our audience, could you give us a beat-by-beat account of that night, the opening night?
Wow. Yeah, so obviously it's already in the air. That we're sort of doing last-minute preparations in the actual theatre and coming back and forth. And my mum and dad are around. Well, my dad actually sadly didn't turn up, but my family arrived. All that typical press night stuff.
Yeah.
But obviously there's a sort of discomfort in the air because some people are on their phone. My husband, who's glued to the industry, is sort of giving me a little nod, going, you know what's happening. There's rumours of this, and I'm there going, no, we're not talking about that. We're having a nice little press night. There's a sort of defiance that I sort of treated that night with, and then I can't remember exactly how it. Like I say, it was quite an emotional evening, but I knew in advance that that Paul Hart, the artistic director, had decided that we were going to go ahead, although he'd heard that things were being cancelled and there was an announcement. And so, but always in the back of our heads, we thought, well, maybe this'll. We didn't know it was definite that was.
Or maybe it was going to be a week or two.
Exactly. Obviously, it was very emotional, but there was a sort of defiance of, yeah, like you say, it'll only be a couple of days, or maybe we'll reopen towards the end of the run, or whatever. Obviously, that isn't quite what happened, and it was more the few days afterwards, actually, as we were waiting with bated breath to the next announcement of when's this going to be over. Should we send the actors home? Bear in mind they're all living on site in Berkshire. Do we send people home? Do we pack up the set? What do we do?
What's next?
What's next? So it was a lot of agonising. There was a fear as well. There was fear in the cast and the company, and about, should we really be still on site waiting around?
So tell me a little bit more about your other projects that you've been working on.
In terms of writing projects, it's actually been quite an emotional, because of the experience of going through, opening your first show and it closing on the same night. There has been a bit of a block, for want of a better term. So I've really tried to push through that. And me and Darren have got another show that I'm very passionate about, which is called Turing, which is about Alan Turing's life and work. And so I've revisited that a little bit, trying to flesh out structure, which is something I'm really passionate about. In Turing, Alan Turing lost his childhood friend very early on in his life, and it stuck with him. That in all the essays and everything that he writes and says, you see this trickle of this grief that is prevalent all the way through his life. And because Christopher was so tied to his academic pursuits, it's grief for a person, but also for his, like I say, his academic journey, for want of a better phrase. And so the sort of grief that I've been through with losing this show in a weird way has actually, every time I think about the grief that Alan's going through, because of what's happening right now, it does sort of connect to this massive project that, 9-year baby that we birthed that sort of died. I think when you look at the vocabulary of what's happened with COVID, it's all about social distance. It's carved a knife through society, social distancing. And I think theatre, it could go many different ways, but it's been very commercial for a long time. It's been quite a big money business at the top end of things. And I think what this time away maybe, hopefully, has taught us is that theatre was a huge part of what we are as social creatures. I feel, having not been to the theatre for months and months, I didn't realise how big a part of how I live my life that is. That is my social life.
2 wicker feet, 10 wicker toes, 2 wicker hands, 1 wicker nose. If I could have a wicker man, I'd treat him well, as well I can. We could work the market stall, he could help me ply the trade, and as evening starts to fall, we take stock of what we'd made. I could not pay a handsome fee, but handsome work it need not be. If you could make a wicker man for me, I'd come to know that a wicker man, each wicker thought, each wicker plan, his willow heart would open wide, his oaken voice sing soft and low. I'd be by his wicker side through the storming winter snow. We could share a pot of tea, he could teach me basketry. If you could make a wicker man, make a wicker man for me. Hello, husband, I'd say. Hello, wife, he'd reply. I've been up with the lark, going fish in the dark. We take a walk through the autumn wood, sun beaming. We take a break underneath your branches, daydreaming. There we would lie, sheltered and free, and all of the forest would see. How I would love my wicker man. I'd give him all the love I can. Make him gentle, make him kind, as my willow soft embrace. May his heart be so designed that he could love this ugly face. Then as the crescent moon grows thin, I would touch his wicker skin. I know you cannot hear my plea, 'cause after all, you're just a tree. But if you could, I know you'd try to make a wicker man. You do everything you can to make a wicker man. Make a wicker man for me.
What advice would you give young people who, or middle-aged people for that matter, who are entering the business, want to be a writer?
I think what I've really enjoyed, and like I say, I come from a different background and writing was totally foreign. I learnt to write through this show. But don't be, for people who maybe are on a different route to become an actor or to become something else, that they sort of are being told, oh, you should write that thing that's at the back of your head. I think we sometimes get in our head the idea that you have to follow whatever path. You have to, I went to drama school, therefore I'm going to be the actor that does the thing, that goes on stage, and you get very set on your ways and where you're heading. And there's all these wonderful little doorways off your corridor that are sort of beckoning you in. And I think just don't be afraid to go, well, let's have a look in that way. To go off the path, wander through the woods a bit. And this was it changed my life in so many ways. And in fact, I've had more acclaim, not that that's the hugest, most important thing, but I've had more acclaim for this show than I did for any of my other.
You've had acknowledgement, people saying, "Yeah, this is good for you. This is you have something to say. You have a voice worth listening to.
Yeah, you're on the right path."
Yeah.
And to listen to that, sometimes, I suppose this advice is mostly useful to actors who are set on that. But yeah, don't be afraid to go, I kind of want to produce something, and to go with that feeling, because if as long as it's coming from your heart, it will take you somewhere that you're meant to go. I think, I could say loads of great, more specific advice about how to write a thing, but I think the main thing to take away is just follow your instinct if it's taking you somewhere off your path.
Rhys, I really want to thank you for coming in, and especially in this crazy time, and sharing your experiences. I think it's going to be very inspiring for everybody who's privileged enough to watch this. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.